Thank you. So I'm a Yorkshireman and I work in Essex. So I'm not quite sure why I'm here today, but I quite like the concept of it, our NHS. Actually, my hospital, 46% of our patients come from Hertfordshire. So what we're trying to do together is really important for all of us. And I like the thought of our NHS. And when you hear the word NHS, I wonder what you really think. Do you really think it's national? Do you really think that the quality of care you get wherever you are in our beautiful Isles, which is much nicer than New Zealand, obviously, do you get that same quality of care wherever you turn up? Is it really national? Because I'm not sure it is anymore. Do we really deal with people's health? Do you know where the word health comes from, by the way? It's an Anglo-Saxon word that comes from the Anglo-Saxon hail, and it means wholeness. So when we talk about our National Health Service, you're talking about, do we really have a wholeness service where citizens, patients, people get their physical needs, their psychological needs, their emotional needs, and yes, their spiritual needs met by this service that we work in. You know, and the points we made earlier about mental health patients or patients with learning difficulties might live 15 years less because they've got that nomenclature. Do we really deal with people's health and homes? Because I'm not sure we do anymore. And are we really servants? Do we really service the patients, the public, the service users? So when I hear NHS, I really wonder if we're working in a true national health service. It's 68 years old this year and it's ready for retirement, isn't it? It really is. It's getting to the point where it isn't fit for purpose anymore. And yet we're the people who work in it, who love it, who've been in it, if you're like me, for some of you longer than me, for 33 years as a clinician, as a leader. You love what we're in and you want it to be a national health service. And I think we're all here today motivated by that same concept of what can we do, what can I do to get it into somewhere different. We can hanker back for the old years, they're never going to come again. As you said, as Nick said already, we're going to be spending less than 7% of our GDP on the national health service, and it's just not sufficient. And yet we do spend £120 billion of our money on the National Health Service. And how can we together spend that money and the 1.2 million people who work in it work differently? So if you're in the National Health Service, it's 68 years old this year and it's ready for retirement, our job is to make sure that it goes into retirement and something replaces it which is better than it was before. I think if you think about when you're 68 years old, you have certain learned behaviours, don't you? You do, don't you? You learn behaviours, and that's what we're seeing all around us in our system currently, the learned behaviours. Pass the blame, pass the deficit, like pass the parcel and Belfast pub the deficit, isn't it? I mean, it ends up in the accused, but that's just a feature of the system. So the learned behaviours of the National Health Service, how do we help change those? You all know what I mean by learned behaviours, don't you? What's the first thing you do when you get into a lift? The first thing you do usually is turn around, isn't it? Because you're walking that way and you turn. Why do we do that? Your parents don't sit down when you're throwing a look, so when you get in a lift, make sure you always turn around and face the door. Because you just learn that behaviour from watching things, don't you? And then you usually press the button to go up. I'm a Yorkshireman. I went down to Covent Garden a few months ago. I got in the lift at Covent Garden and wondered why everybody was looking at me. Because I'd never been in Covent Gardens before. I got into the lift at Covent Gardens and I turned around and everybody stood looking at you. And then when the doors are open behind you and you get crushed in the rush, you realise that learned behaviours don't always work. And the second thing you do in a learned behaviour when you're in a lift is you press the button, don't you, to go up the floor. I went into, there's hotels in London, don't stay in many of them because it's quite expensive, but I went to one of them, it's an Amelia Hotel, Spanish room, just up at the top near UCL. You know what it's like when you check in, you're chief exec as well, so you don't really listen to, you're not blessed with listening skills as chief execs. Walked in to check into this hotel, went up to the desk as you do, and the woman's there going blah 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 blah, and breakfast over here. You don't really listen, do you? Because you know how a hotel works, don't you? So I get my key, they say thank you very much, quite late at night, and I go off to the lifts. Just as I get there, one of the lifts opens, it's fantastic. I get in the lift, I turn around obviously. What's the next thing you do? Press the button. There's two buttons in this lift. Doors open, doors close. So I'm looking around for other buttons, there's no other buttons, what would you do? You'd get out probably, I'm a chief exec, I'm clever. So have you ever been in these lists where you've got a key and you push a key in something and you think, oh, so I'm looking for a slot anywhere. I'm thinking maybe it's you tap it magnetic, I'm pushing it in any crevice that I can find, nothing happens. I'm feeling a bit of a muppet by this time. What would you do next? So I'm in there and I go, floor 4. Fourth floor, 4. Because I'm thinking there must be something, there must be a trick to this. I wish I'd listened to the woman at the desk by now, this learned behaviour, not listening. And I'm thinking, maybe you don't understand me because I've got a Yorkshire accent, so I'm going, 4 floor. And eventually the lift starts to move. And I'm thinking, technology is fantastic now, isn't it? Voice activation, we've got it at work. Don't use it, but we've got it at work. And the lift goes up, I'm on the ground floor, my thing's on the 4th floor, so that's why I'm saying 4. And it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm thinking, okay, what do I do now? So it gets to the 6th floor, the door's open, I get out, I get back in. 4, pushing me. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nothing seems to happen, so I'm stuck like a complete muppet in this lift. So eventually I get out, I think there must be a trick to this, and as I walk back from the lift, the further I walk back from the lift, I see pillars at the beginning of each lift. And obviously the idea is that you press the button for the lift on the pillar that's about 6 foot in front of the lift before you get there. But a learned behaviour just demonstrates that sometimes when you're in a new situation, you move from learned behaviour to learned helplessness. And I think we're in that position of, we've learned behaviours in the NHS that worked for many years that no longer work, and we're now in that kind of sense of learned helplessness. How can we possibly fix something which is fundamentally broken? In 1917, George V started something which has continued every year since 1917. Do you know what that was? The 100-year telegrams. When you get to 100 years old, you get a telegram from the Queen. Actually, you do anyway, you have to apply for it. So if you know anybody who's 100, you have to apply for your telegram. In 1917, George V sent out 34 telegrams to people in England who were 100 years old. In 1948, when the NHS was born, George VI, who carried it on, guess how many telegrams he sent out? 300. You know how many the Queen sent out last year? 14,000. When the NHS is 100 in 32 years, do you know how many the monarch will have to send out? 1 million. There'll be 1 million people in Britain in 32 years' time who are 100 years old. That's the scale of our challenge. In 1948, when the NHS was born, for every taxpayer, for every non-paying person who didn't pay tax, there were 7 people paying tax. Do you know how many there are today? Taxpayers and non-taxpayers? 3. In 2048, do you know how many taxpayers will be to every non-taxpayers? 1. 1 person paying tax for every person not paying tax. So when we think our system is fundamentally broken, our system is fundamentally broken. We cannot continue to run our health service spending less than 7% of our GDP with 1 million people 100 years old, with only 1 taxpayer, so find a friend, a young person preferably, who's paying tax to pay for your care. We have to find a way to make this different. That is the scale of our challenge. It is immense, it's huge. There are things we could do. We could walk away, we could say I've had enough, I'll retire, I've done my bit for the NHS. That would be easy to do. I could say it's broken everywhere, so if I keep my head down, I'll be okay. Because there are places worse than me. Watford's one of them by the sound of it this morning. Places worse than me. I'll keep my head down. Or we could be brave and say it's not working. And what struck me first of all, and maybe struck you about the Canterbury system and the other places that you look at across the world, the 1 or 2, that Southern Health in Alaska, Ribeira Salud in Valencia, they started off because everybody knew that what they had was fundamentally broken. Those headlines that you displayed when you started your talk, that said everybody knows that it's not working and we have to collectively do something impactful and different. That's what really struck me. And it was the same in Southern Health in Alaska. It was the same in Ribeira Salud in Valencia in Spain. It was just in a state where everybody said it cannot continue. And I wonder if we get our message out enough as the leaders in the system that we have to do things different because we cannot continue to function. And I think if anything, we need 4 views, I think, of the future. One is the helicopter view. I've heard a bit about that this morning. So if we take that helicopter ride and just look down on our system in Hertfordshire and in the West Essex bit that's put us together in this footprint for the SDP, as the leaders, to see where things connect and where things don't connect, and to get that real sense of overview seems to be really important for us to be able to sell that vision, that overview, that helicopter view to our people. And then you need that telescope view, don't you? That's where we're trying to get to. I got a real strong sense of that this morning, in that sense of a concerted, integrated vision. It's not just, the vision can't be it's just broken, it's got to be different. It's got to be, that's where we're going to head for. It might seem a long way off, it might seem really difficult, there might be some politics in the way, but you know what, that's where we're going to take our people. And leaders need people to follow them. So we have to, as the leaders, say and agree together, not only is it broken, but do you know what, that's where we're going together. And the journey might be 5-10 years, but actually that's where we're going. And actually you start to see the obstacles in the way, and you have to move around those obstacles sometimes, don't you? Some of them we can blow up, some of them are going to be immovable, some of them we're going to have to vote out. Whatever that is, we have to find a way around it, and we have to, you know, the sense of direction might change today a little bit, we might be turning back, but if we keep our eye on the vision, the telescope view, the binocular view, whatever you call it, if we keep saying all the time, that's where we're headed, we've got a chance of getting there. Don't know if any of you play golf. I won't say I exactly play golf, but somebody said to me when they were watching me play, do you know if you aim for nothing in golf, you usually hit it? It's true, isn't it?
Every weekend.
So, exactly. You've got to aim for something. So let's be clear what we're aiming for and take people with us. I think the third view is really important. It's that sonar view. What's underneath us that is likely to sink us? Is there a submarine lurking beneath us? Is there a reef that's dangerous that's going to blow us out of the water? Are we really clear about what's beneath us? Do we know as a system the things that are likely to sink us? And have we got plans to actually not hit the reef or not be sunk by the submarine? Do we know what the undercurrents are, the big things that are going to come and jump out and bite us? Then there's a fourth view which we rarely look at, that's the microscope view. So my clinical background as a clinical scientist did a lot of microscopy, looking down and looking at the cells that were leukemic, or looking at the parasites that were in the blood, or looking at the viruses that you can see. Do we really know the little things which cumulatively can kill us or can heal us? And have we really made use of all the people that you talked about this morning, when you said it was about 20,000 people, Peter, just working our system alone? The vast majority of those come to do work every day to do a fantastic job. And we were just saying on our table, the two big questions, if you can answer every national and international staff survey, the top two questions that if people say yes to, that you've got a chance of actually making a difference. The first question is, do you get to do every day the thing you're best at? And I wonder how many of those 20,000 people come to work today, they're not going to get the chance to do what they're best at because of bureaucracy, red tape, just the busyness of it all, because we as leaders haven't got the system working in a way that gets the best out of every one of those 20,000 people. And the second question is, do you have a best friend at work? And I know lots of people in my organisation who spend, well, we all do it, we spend more time at work with our colleagues than we do with your families. If you feel that somebody's watching your back, if you feel that somebody's got you and they're going to look after you no matter what, and that you can really trust each other, you've got a real chance of making a difference. And it's been quite convenient for the press, for the politicians to pit primary care against secondary, and mental health priorities against acute priorities. We've got to really believe in each other. And I think if we can believe in each other and we get people to do every day the thing that they're best at, and I do believe you should only do what only you can do. So only acute hospitals should be doing some of the things that we do, and a lot of the stuff we do shouldn't be done by us. And that's that left shift of patients through the whole system, isn't it? We absolutely have got a chance together, and it's in our hands to do it. So thanks for the opportunity, Peter.
Phil, thank you very much. I have this vision of Phil in the lift shouting for, getting there, eventually getting out the lift, running up 4 floors, pressing the button, running back down again to get in the lift, so it goes up. But no, seriously, thank you very much for that. I think it really did encapsulate an awful lot of what's been said. I really feel, standing here, that I have achieved my 3 goals, that you have been inspired from the conversations we've had, from the feedback we've had. You have been inspired by Roger's story as much as I was when I first set out on the journey of setting up this meeting, particularly the concept of thinking about time, wasted time for the patient, and how that has this impact on the entire system. Thinking about the narrative and how we make that narrative work to encourage and empower our colleagues, that 20,000 workforce, to start making those changes, to continue on this path they're already travelling on. But we do still need to think about those that aren't working as well as they should, and how we as leaders encourage them to carry on, but looking at why it isn't working properly so they can adjust them. It's about us giving permission. We've heard the word permission an awful lot. I also believe that you will leave here today believing that change can happen. We couldn't have had much more energy in the room today, and that has been so very apparent. And I also believe you have heard that we really are pretty closely aligned, but it will take that final bit of courage to move over the edge, to really line ourselves up so that we can make a change for the longer term, whilst also addressing some of the immediate issues. On my list of 3 things that I'm going to do when I leave here is I'm going to be on the phone trying to arrange a meeting with the senior people in this room so that we can set up what I've been calling to them when I've been speaking to them a guiding coalition, and I think someone else referred them to as a governance team, a team of people that are going to really make sure this happens and really going to work together across the services to ensure that we really do end up with total integration. We mustn't, whatever happens, be using a financial stick to make this happen, but we must be using the carrot of improving the patient experience and reducing patient wasted time. I think the next part of this meeting, the lunch period, is probably going to be just as important as the rest of the meeting while you carry on forming conversations, forming relationships, and making sure that you actually commit to talking to someone about this outside the meeting. So I hope you enjoy your lunch. Thank you all very much for coming. I'm going to specifically thank Roger again for coming from New Zealand, and I would like you to join me. Thank Julie Hackett here, who's helped me enormously in setting up this meeting. We've had weekly telephone calls with Roger at all sorts of funny times of the day and the evening, and even worse for Roger. And I also want to thank Jess and Julie Hall, who have also helped us with the arrangements and making sure this meeting runs as smoothly as it can and is inspiring. But also, of course, I'm going to thank Helen and Sue and my team for help setting up the whole thing and making sure that the administration has worked extremely well. Just one very, very final thing. Before you go to lunch, we just had to show you this piece of YouTube. Enjoy it. It just encapsulates everything we've talked about.